Hey, good morning, folks. Well, it's the morning as I record this video. It's Friday morning. Hello, I am your host, your instructor for lifespan development, John Chansey. So, welcome. Hopefully, you're in the right place. If you're watching this video, you're most certainly enrolled in lifespan development for the summer. So, welcome. This is an online class. So, typically, what I'll do is I'll record and send out a video each week, kind of outlining what to expect, that for that week, what you'll need to read, and any assignments that we have. So, be expecting these probably on Sundays, maybe as early as Saturday. I'm recording on a Friday now just because school hasn't started and I have lots of time to spare. Anyways, welcome. This typically is a course that a lot of people take after taking introductory psychology. I think there's another course in between that some of you may have taken. I'm not really sure how the sequence works necessarily. I teach this course in introductory psych, so some of you may have had me for introductory psych before. I also know this course, typically there's a large majority of the course from my experience of teaching it, our enrollment comes from the nursing program. So that doesn't necessarily mean every student is a nursing student, but it seems like a large majority, typically over 90%. And also we have a really large enrollment too. This is a class that fills up a lot, which is great. So, and a fun fact about this course, lifespan development, I was not a psychology major until I took a course on lifespan development or human development. It wasn't until that was my maybe second or third semester at OCCC that I took that course, and I was really impacted by the subject matter. Not that I switched my major from film to psychology. Not that I'm expecting any of you all to switch from nursing to psychology or whatever, but I just think it's a really neat course. There's a lot of applicability. I'm in educational psychology, and so many of the theories that are presented in the textbook and the content that we're going to be covering this semester, that it's applicable in education, it's applicable in nursing, it's applicable in counseling, and all these different fields when you're working with working with human beings. Anyways, this course is all about change. We're going to be talking about change throughout the lifespan. We're going to begin before life begins. We're going to begin, prenatal development and work our way all the way through the entire lifespan, all the way till death. Unfortunately, this is something, death is inevitable in the lifespan. None of us will make it out of this life alive. I do apologize. My laundry is going in the other room, so maybe you might hear that. I have no idea if you can hear that or not right now, but I apologize if you can. So anyways, this course, really, I want you to think about really the constant theme throughout this course is change. And I really want you to think about your own experiences of change, because you've undergone lots of changes. We all have. I mean, every single one of us, from the moment we're born to the moment we pass, we are undergoing lots of changes, or even before we're born, as we're developing in utero. Anyways, change, big theme of the course. Keep that in mind. I'll keep bringing it up. A little bit about myself, very briefly. I'm going to talk about myself. Again, I'm John Chansey. I'm your instructor. This is the beginnings of my 4th year teaching at OSU OKC as an adjunct instructor. I'm also a doctoral student. Actually, now I'm considered a doctoral candidate at the University of Oklahoma, meaning all I have left is my dissertation to complete. And once that's done, I'll have a PhD. But I'm studying educational psychology at the University of Oklahoma. And so I adjunct on the side here as well. I teach at OU as well when they have courses for me to teach. I'm a research assistant, a teaching assistant, among other things. So I have a background in psychology. I got my bachelor's in psychology from the University of Oklahoma in 2010. It was 2011? 2010, sorry, I'm mixing years up now. Took about a year off and then started working on my master's at UCO. Got my master's in secondary education while I also taught high school at Putnam City North High School for 3 years. Was an alternatively certified instructor there. As soon as I finished my master's, I enrolled into my PhD, and 3 years later, here I am. And I'm beginning my 4th year. So, anyways, a little bit about me, education-wise. Besides that, I'm a big fan of traveling. Got to go to Toronto recently. Big fan of traveling in general, whether in country, out of country. Love traveling places. Love collecting passport stamps, national parks, things like that. I'm also a big proponent of being active. So really in a yoga kick right now. Having a lot of fun doing yoga. I blew my back out 6 months ago, and so I'm currently using yoga to kind of rehab my back after surgery. and hoping to get back into running soon. I was an avid runner before that, and so that was kind of put on hold. But so enough about me. I really don't want to talk too much about myself, but I do want to mention some things I want to talk about now is what you can sort of expect from me in this course. First of all, a lot of this is an online course. So much of this course in terms of your learning is going to be driven by you, the learner. I am not going to be here, and even if this was an in-person class, the responsibility of learning is still on you, but I think it's more so in an online class. There's nobody going to be there to sort of spill the knowledge into your head, and out it comes when you take your test. I mean, it's great. That's not really how learning occurs. I'll be here as your sort of guide to help you along. I'm going to create an atmosphere that is ideal for your learning. I'm not there to spoon feed you everything you know. You are going to drive the bus as far as your learning goes. You are going to create the understanding of this content. I'm just going to try to create the conditions that'll make that so. So what you can expect from me is, ideally creating a condition that will enable your learning and not get in the way of your learning. I also want to be here as a resource. I am your guide on the side. If you have any questions, comments, anything at all to help, if you have misunderstandings, please use me as a resource. Use each other as a resource in our discussion posts, which I'll talk about in a moment. Use your textbook. You absolutely do need your textbook. It's the Santrock book. This is where you're going to primarily be working from. This is a very reading-intensive course. We have 20 chapters to cover in 8 weeks. So on average, you're going to be reading about 2.5 chapters every week. And I know that sounds like a lot, but these chapters are about 25, 30 pages at most per week. So if I were you, I'd get in the habit of making a reading schedule. And I wouldn't recommend just binging it all in one day. If you have 2.5 chapters to read, I wouldn't, on average, I wouldn't sit down for 2.5 hours or 3 hours, or however long it takes you to read, and bang through that many chapters. I would break it up. I highly, highly recommend that you break it up. There's so much research that says that we just don't learn when we try to just stuff a bunch of stuff into our brain at once. We learn much better when we take it and digest it in bites rather than like huge chunks. So my recommendation is to create a schedule. I mean, we're on a very tight schedule over 8 weeks, so make sure that you have the ability to kind of create a schedule that kind of works for you. Some of you are going to be working part-time, full-time. Some of you are going to be taking more than one class, so you need to work around that. But again, I'm here as a resource for you. So you can also expect me to give you prompt and timely feedback, to post grades in a prompt and timely manner. I work on a pretty tight schedule as well, being a full-time student, being an instructor as well. So I like to keep a tight schedule, not a tight schedule, but meaning I like to work kind of on a schedule, and I'm willing to work with you and around that schedule, but you just got to communicate with me. And so what do I expect from you as the student, as the learner? I expect you to, one, come prepared to learn. I expect you to have the prerequisite materials, including the textbook and access to Canvas. If you're watching this video, that should mean that you have access to Canvas, but we'll be doing all of our work from Canvas. Unfortunately, D2L is bye-bye. We're doing Canvas now, which I actually like a lot more. It's all integrated. It's a lot easier and a little less clunky than D2L. So make sure you have access to that, and make sure you are familiar with how to use Canvas. And I also expect you to be engaged. So, our primary way of engaging in this course will be through discussions. So I expect you to have good discussions. I expect you to bring, a lot of these discussions will dive into personal experiences. That's the best way that we learn, is when we connect personal experiences or something we already know to something new that we're trying to learn, and we bridge that gap. That's how learning is formed. Learning is all about connections. It's connections, whether it's literal connections in the mind that we're making as our brain grows and learn, we make connections, or making those connections between our experiences and past experiences. And new ones. So I expect you to be engaged. I expect you to, when things are work is assigned, I expect you to do it. I'm not saying that to be, like to harp on you, like do this work, but I mean, it's like, if you want to be successful, if you want to learn, if you want to grow, and if you want to learn to think like a psychologist, if you want to learn to think in this sort of developmental perspective, then that's what you're going to need to do. This course isn't, we're not giving you this text and giving you exams and assignments so you can pass them and make an A. That's great. But ideally, the goal of this course is you to think in a sort of lifespan perspective, and I think it's very applicable to you that are going into the nursing field, especially because you're going to be dealing with people all across the lifespan. Some of you may go into specific, age groups. Maybe you'll work in geriatrics. Maybe some of you will work in pediatrics or whatever. But there are certain dilemmas. There's certain issues that are at stake and are at play for people at different stages of the lifespan. So that's where I think it's applicable for you. So I expect you to come and engage. I also expect you to communicate with me. This is an online class. I will not get to see you every other day or twice a week or once a week, even at that. So we have to communicate with one another. So if something comes up and you're unable to, maybe like if you're going to be late to take the exam or to turn in an assignment or whatever, you need to communicate with me. And that's what this is for. I'm open to you. If you have questions, if you're stuck, if you're reading something and you're like, I do not understand this, shoot me an email, communicate with me, jump on our a discussion forum and post a discussion, question or whatever. But do something. Don't just sit there idly and expect like, oh, I just don't get it. Again, we are resources for each other. Each of you in this class, myself, we need to, make sure we are using each other in the right way as far as like a good resource. If you're stuck or you have a question or something comes up in life and you're having difficulties, let me know. I can help you if you communicate with me, but I absolutely cannot help you if you don't. Okay, so that's that. I should have prepared this earlier. Sorry, I'm jumping over to Canvas really quick. I'm jumping over to our course. You need to be able to have access to Canvas, and I've already posted some materials there for you to look at. And all of the materials that are posted, especially in this week 1, you are responsible for. Specifically, there is a syllabus. Please take a look at the syllabus. I'm going to briefly go over some important points on the syllabus, but that's about it. My email address is listed here. If you have a question or want to meet, I don't have an office, but I can meet with you via Skype, or we can set up some kind of appointment to meet on campus, maybe like, get coffee or something in the little coffee lounge or whatever. But just know you also absolutely need the 16th edition of the Santrock Lifespan Development text. It looks like this here. I think they're using a new text next semester. And honestly, to be honest, if you get the 15th edition, you get the 16th edition, I really don't think it matters all that much. Since the 17th is out, maybe the 16th is cheaper now. I don't know. I posted a link for you to find it. I posted an Amazon link. That's not to say you have to go to Amazon. You can go wherever you want to get it. I don't care. I don't care if it's used. I don't care if you borrow it from a friend, whatever. I don't make a dime off of this textbook. It's not mine. I'm not John Santrock, so I don't really care. It's just the textbook we use. But it is a valuable resource. I will be posting PowerPoints that go along with this, but you cannot replace the information in this textbook with the PowerPoints. I'm sorry, it's too valuable. So if you do not have the textbook, I'll tell you right now, you will have a very hard time being successful in this course. In fact, I will say you will probably not be successful in this course. So make sure you get the textbook. If you look down, we have various different learning outcomes, and I think there are like 7 of them. But my ultimate goal for you is that I want you to think like a psychologist, think in a scientific way. I want you to think in a way that sort of manifests this idea of lifespan, this idea of change across the lifespan. So, we can talk about, I want you all to make an A, that's great. But, if you all learn how to think and think like psychologists and think in this sort of lifespan perspective, then I think that's the biggest win of them all. So that's what I'm really hoping for. And again, we're going to cover a vast array of different parts of the lifespan. So be prepared to that. We're going to go from prenatal all the way to death. And so this course will also have 5 exams. So roughly we will have an exam almost every other week. So be prepared for that. These exams are 50 multiple choice questions. They cover 4 chapters each. So we'll have 5 total. And that's the biggest chunk of your grade are those exams. So please make sure that you don't miss one of those exams. Again, if something comes up like, hey, I'm traveling, or I just got sick and I can't, I'm bedridden or whatever, communicate with me, or tell your friend like, hey, email my professor and tell him I'm sick, or do something, because if I don't know what's going on, and you just don't take the exam, that's a 0 and I can't work with you. But if you communicate with me, I can try to work with you. And that's what I'm more than happy to do. I want you to be successful. So, but you got to help me out a little bit at least. So anyways, take a look at that. We'll also have discussion posts pretty much every week. This is an online class. And so a lot of the discussions will probably come from one of the 2 or 3 chapters that are assigned each week. It'll be a topic it'll be something that you can connect your own personal experiences to more often than not. And my expectations for discussions are that you get your initial post in by Wednesday. So I'll typically post a discussion like on Sunday, and you'll have like until Wednesday night at 11:59 to get it in for full credit. And then if you'll also have until Friday to respond to 2 of your peers. I want you to get your initial post in by Wednesday, so that way between Wednesday and Friday, there are plenty of discussion posts for everybody to engage in the conversation. So I've actually put up an expectation for discussions that I would like for you to check out. It's on the week 1 content on the homepage, so take a look at that. In your peer responses, I'm not looking for just, hey, nice job, good job, I liked your post. I'm looking for something deeper than that. So, if you say nice job, good post, talk about why was it a good post? Why is it a good job? Go a little deeper, connect it to something of your own experience or back to your own post. Why is it similar? Why is it different? So if you do that, you'll get full credit, and I typically just heads up as far as discussion posts. This isn't like a strict rule of thumb, but I typically I give you about a point per full sentence that relates to the discussion itself. So, if your first sentence is like, hey, good job, that's probably not going to count. You won't get a point for that one. But if the next like 4 or 5 sentences are all about, okay, this is, substantive questions or connections or ideas, then sure, you'll get points for that. But just know that's kind of a rough idea of what I'm looking for. So if you have questions before you submit a discussion post or a peer response, ask me. That's the best way to do it. And we also have 2 writing assignments in this course. We have a couple of writing assignments that I'll talk about. I think we have one due maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, and we have another due at the end of the course. But they are all assignments that are meant to help you connect, again, your experiences to what we're covering in the course. So I will post more information as we get closer. Probably the week before they're even due, I will give you information, but just know that there will be a couple of writing assignments. And I say writing assignments, they're like 2 or 3 pages at most. So they're not incredibly extensive like essays, like research or anything like that. But I just want you to connect your own thoughts and ideas and experiences to what we're covering in the class. Okay, and I'll talk about those more later. So that's the syllabus. Please, I just briefly went over the syllabus. You are still responsible for the rest of it. If you want to know what it takes to make an A, go look over that. You can do that on your time, but please make sure you do. Below the syllabus, I've also posted a schedule, which is a week-by-week schedule that outlines when all of our assignments are due, when exams are due. So if you take a look, you can already see that we have our first exam will be due next week. We'll be probably open it up in a week, and you'll have about 9 days to complete it, but it'll cover chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it is absolutely vital that you get this textbook immediately. If you don't have it already, I'm here to tell you you're probably a little behind. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to motivate you, which if it scares you and motivates you, great. If it just motivates you, even better. So make sure you get that textbook. We are jumping into it right away. We only have 8 weeks. I'm sorry. I wish, on a 16-week course, you can stretch this out, and there's not as much pressure, at least to kind of to get started, at least. But in an 8-week course, this is already a lot of material to cover. So I'm sorry about that. But take a look at the schedule, and it outlines everything to expect week to week, when assignments are due, when discussions are due, when essays are due, etc. So if you are curious what your schedule is like, because this is an online class, our schedule should not vary too much. I know it says subject to change, but really, unless something comes up maybe on my end, like if I got sick or some kind of natural disaster, God forbid, maybe it changes then, but it's an online class. We're pretty much steady. We're steady Eddie the whole way, so to speak. Okay, so that's things to expect. Also, before you send an email to me in this course, also please feel free and please do take a look at the how to email your professor. I think by now, many of you, this is not your first go around in college. This is not an introductory class, so I do have higher expectations for you in that regard, but take a look at that document before you send me or any of your professors an email, because you'd be surprised what mistakes people make or what common courtesies people avoid in email, like saying who they are or a greeting, for example. And I know most people don't do it out of like ill will, like they're not jerks or anything, but it's just like, maybe not if you just knew a little better. Anyways. So take a look at our schedule. Week 1, I'm going to talk about week 1 and then we'll get going. But this week, I want you to acquire your textbook and then you're going to be reading chapters 1 through 3. I know that sounds like a lot of work. I'm looking at it right now. Chapters 1 through 3. If we flip over there now, we're going to look at the lifespan perspective. So this is kind of setting the table, letting you know about kind of what to expect in terms of theoretical ideas, what lifespan development is all about. So kind of this is the what chapter. This chapter is about 30 pages long or so. So again, break it up. Don't read it all in one day. Break it up. Chapter 2 is about beginning. So this is getting into some of the biological stuff and related to lifespan development. Some of this stuff will be a repeat from introductory psychology, meaning you're going to talk about like evolutionary psychology, nature versus nurture, some of the stuff that's going on in terms of like brain development, prenatal development, a little bit of that. So some biology here. So if you were good on that in chapter 2, you should be good on that in this chapter as well. It shouldn't be throwing you too many new curveballs. And then we're going to get into chapter 3, which is our first developmental stage, and it's prenatal development and birth. And there's a huge debate in religion and politics and philosophy, et cetera, about, well, when does life begin? Does it begin at conception or does it begin at birth? Well, that's an argument that people can debate about for years and years and years if they want. But in psychology and development, or in lifespan perspective, development begins at conception. When two people come together and form, when people come together and procreate, or if people procreate in other ways, in vitro or other things like that, that's the process of development in terms of change beginning, because as soon as that process begins, it is nothing but change. And that's what we're talking about with development. So whether you want to call that life or whatever, that's up to philosophers and religious experts and things like that. But for our sake, we are going to start talking about development before the baby is even born. And there's a lot of change. Babies undergo multiple changes throughout their experience in utero. So you're going to be reading about that. And after that, the chapters are kind of broken down into different types. So chapters will then break down into physical development, for example, and then cognitive development will be another chapter, and then another chapter will be on socio-emotional development. And typically those 3 chapters will focus on, for example, a specific period of development like infancy or adolescence or adulthood, etc. So you're going to get an experience of kind of the trifecta, which is physical, cognitive, and emotional development. Obviously, there's other types of development, but those are kind of the big 3. So each chapter will be kind of themed around one of the big 3. So please read chapters 1 through 3. Get your textbook, read it. I do have PowerPoints posted that you can use just to kind of guide you. Maybe after you read chapter 3, you can double check and make sure, okay, do I understand this? So I have questions. I can look over the PowerPoints and take notes or whatever works best for you. We also will have a discussion. As I speak now, I haven't posted this, but I will have one up for you to work on by the time class starts on Monday. And that discussion will, part of it will be an introduction. I want you to introduce yourself to the class. And part of that means sharing a little bit of information about yourself, maybe where you're from, maybe your major, which will probably be nursing. If not, that's cool too. I'm happy to hear that as well. But I'd like that. I would like also for you to share a picture, maybe a recent photo of yourself. Please make sure it's an appropriate photo, meaning like, don't share the photo of you and like your friends at like a bar and you're holding up an alcoholic beverage or something. Like that's fine. I'm not against that, but I'm just saying like for a professional kind of classroom setting, maybe that's not the most appropriate. But if you have a good recent picture of yourself, and you want to share, please do. It's great to put a name to the face and a face to the name. Again, remember, we're not going to interact in person, so we got to be able to see each other and get to know each other in other ways. So our discussion post will be that way. And this discussion post will probably be centered on one of the 3 chapters. So get your textbook ready, get to reading, and then let me know as soon as you have any questions, any concerns at all. Again, I'm here to help. Other than that, I will see you for the next video. I promise the next video will not be this long. This is a long video just because I had to cover the syllabus. I had to cover all the other stuff, the important stuff for week 1. But typically videos will be like 10 minutes. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I can't wait to get to know you all through your discussion posts this week. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.